James stepped into the bathroom, then poked his head into his parents' room. Not here, Marvin thought, shuddering. He couldn't imagine spending any more time than was absolutely necessary with Mr. and Mrs. Pompaday. What a racket they made with their constant chatter, not to mention the frequent explosions. Huh, James said. I hope you get what I mean. You don't seem to be doing anything. Listen, if I'm not close to where you live, crawl the other way, down my finger toward my hand, okay? Marvin obligingly crawled toward James's hand. James laughed out loud. James, is that you? What's so funny? Mrs. Pompaday stuck her head around the doorway from the kitchen. James immediately dropped his hand to his side, and Marvin held on for dear life. Nothing, James said. I just saw something funny. Mrs. Pompaday looked at him suspiciously. Out here in the hall? I hope you weren't laughing at my statue. Marvin watched her cross to the hall table and tenderly lift a small hand-carved wooden figure of a woman dancing. I noticed some of your little friends laughing at her during the party, but I trust you're more mature than that. James sighed. I wasn't laughing at that, Mom. Well, good, because you're an artist now, dear. You need to show appreciation for the art of different cultures, even those silly old Eskimo sculptures your father has lying around. Why, when I think that your drawings might be hanging in somebody's parlor, it just gives me goosebumps. She swooped down and kissed the top of James's head. James stiffened in surprise and slid his hand behind his leg, shielding Marvin. When's dinner? He asked, clearly desperate to change the subject. 20 minutes, Mrs. Pompaday returned to the kitchen. James walked toward the living room. We're almost out of rooms, little guy. Here? He paused in the middle of the oriental rug, looking around. Marvin stayed close to his hand. See my dad's horse painting? James asked softly. Isn't it great? He walked closer, leaning over the couch to stare at it. Marvin leaned toward it too, balancing lightly on his rear legs. The painting was bold and graceful, with its rush of bright blue color. You would never know it was a horse unless someone told you. But once you knew it was a horse, it was impossible to see it as anything else. James glanced down at Marvin. Do you think I'll ever be able to make something like that? Probably not, he sighed. I mean, I can't even draw. You're the one who can. Marvin looked up at him sympathetically. But not without my ink set, right? James said, smiling suddenly. So it is like you need my help. He looked at his father's canvas again. But could you make a painting? I don't think so. Not one this big, anyway. It would take you years. We'd better stick to the small stuff. Marvin realized it was possible to have an entire conversation with James without saying a word. There were beetles like that, who did all the talking. But with James, it was like he did the listening too, and filled in the gaps with what he knew you would say if only you could. Okay, dining room? James drifted thoughtfully through the archway. Marvin stayed put. I don't think you live in William's room. Did I tell you William ate a ladybug once? Yep, he did. Picked it up and popped it right in his mouth. My mom totally freaked out. Marvin shuddered as James continued. Let's try the kitchen, but we have to be careful because everybody's in there. As they turned to the kitchen, Marvin inched toward the middle of James's finger. James grinned. Okay, getting hotter, he whispered, tiptoeing into the room. Mrs. Pompaday was busy at the stove, stirring something with a metal spoon. Marvin crawled to the end of James's finger, and James swiftly bent and deposited him on the tile floor, close to the wall of the cupboards. Delighted at the ease and speed of the journey home, Marvin darted gratefully into the shadows. James, Mrs. Pompaday protested, don't sneak up on me like that. I almost tripped over you. And what are you doing down there on the floor? Tying my shoelace, James mumbled, just as Marvin disappeared inside the kitchen cupboard. Chapter 16. too risky." When Marvin came through the front door, his mother burst into tears. "Oh, Marvin, darling, where on earth were you?" "I'm sorry, Mama," Marvin began, but before he could finish, she smothered him in a hug, covering his shell with several legs at once. His father hurried over, clearing his throat gruffly. "Marvin, you had us worried out of our shells. Why didn't you come home yesterday? You got me in a lot of trouble with your mother, I hope you realize, for ever allowing you to stay behind." "We went to a museum." "A museum? What?" Mama's eyes widened. "You left the apartment? Marvin, you have no business doing human things like that. It's too dangerous. I know you want to help James, but not at the risk of your own life. Why, your father and Uncle Albert made trip after trip to James's room looking for you. We had no idea what had happened." "I'm sorry," Marvin said again. He explained about the drawings at the Met, the visit to Christina's office, and the surprise of being knocked to the floor and left there. "Oh," Mama cried, "darling, you're lucky you're still alive. What were you doing there anyway?" Marvin sighed. So much had happened since yesterday. How could he make his parents understand? "I'm hungry," he said. "Could we talk about it at dinner?" Mama nodded. Yes, of course. You must be starving. Here, sit down and eat something. It's been a long day for all of us." So the three Beatles gathered around the rectangular pink eraser that served as their kitchen table, and Mama heaped it with foil platters of hearty digestibles. Tiny steaming broccoli florets from the Pompidou supper, 2 cubes of cheddar from William's lunch, crispy brown chicken skin, a lemon rind, a crushed potato chip, and a cherry lifesaver for dessert. Marvin hungrily devoured every morsel, and between mouthfuls haltingly relayed the story of Durer, the missing virtue drawings, his own effort to copy Fortitude, and Christina's plan to stage a theft from the museum. His parents were so astonished they stopped eating halfway through the meal and just listened. When Marvin was finished, Papa shook his head. "Well, that is amazing. Faking the theft of their own picture, huh?" "Not the real picture, though," Marvin said. "My copy of it." Mama smiled at him. "I'm sure it was lovely, Marvin. I wish I could have seen it. But humans lead such complicated lives, don't they? Why would people steal something they couldn't sell or even hang on their own wall?" Marvin hesitated. He understood that somehow. Maybe just to have it, because it's so beautiful. Then you could look at it whenever you wanted. "Well, I don't think it makes sense," Mama said. "And it's wrong." "Humans are masters at making their own trouble," Papa agreed. "I'm just glad you're home safe, Marvin. It's time to put all this behind you." Marvin hesitated. "I can't, Mama." "What do you mean?" "Christina Balcony, the woman at the museum, needs James to make another copy of Fortitude, a really good one, which means he needs me." "To do another drawing?" Mama shook her head vigorously. "Darling, no, you simply can't. It's too risky." "Your mother's right, Marvin," Papa chimed in. "The family didn't like this from the beginning. We wanted you to get rid of your drawing altogether, remember? You can't get more involved. It's dangerous for everyone." "But—" "I'm sorry, Marvin. I know you want to help James," his mother said gently. "You tried your best, but it's time to let the humans work this out on their own." "Mama, please," Marvin protested. "You don't understand. James can't do the drawing himself. He's counting on me." Mama took Marvin's leg firmly and led him toward the bedroom. "What I understand is that this has gone on long enough. It's an elaborate deceit, that's what it is. For a good purpose or not, it's still wrong. Don't you remember the saying, 'Oh, what a tangled web we weave'? when first we practice to deceive?" Marvin rolled his eyes. "Mama, that's a spider saying." "Well, it applies just as well here. You're helping James to mislead people. You've been missing twice overnight under circumstances that could have gotten you badly hurt or even killed. Enough, darling. It's time for bed. I'm sure you're exhausted after your adventure at the museum." "But, Mama—" "Good night, Marvin. Sleep tight. Don't let the bedbugs bite." She nestled him in his cotton ball bed, kissed his shell, and left the room. Marvin lay on his side, wide awake, staring at the wall. Today was Monday. James was supposed to return to the museum after school on Wednesday to do the new drawing. He thought of the boy hovering over the blank page with no idea what to do. How could Marvin abandon him? This was the very heart of friendship, Marvin thought. Your willingness to help each other in a jam, to take a friend's problems as your very own. Marvin sighed. He had to think of something before Wednesday afternoon, or James would be in big trouble.